Tom Hallett was accustomed to keeping his eyes closed as he moved through the world. Like everyone else around him, he had been provided with ocular and cerebral implants upon reaching adulthood that allowed him to view information about his surroundings, which was automatically layered over his normal vision in an advanced form of augmented reality. Street names, weather statistics and forecasts, news and stock tickers. Indeed, virtually any fragment or mass of data he might require in any given moment was available to him with a simple thought. Of course, like those around him, Tom had quickly learned the value of being able to turn off all of that, either to focus on a particular source of information, or to relish the calm, soothing darkness that could still be achieved if one simply closed their eyes and cleared their mind. As such, Hallett sat motionless, his eyelids sealed, as the pod, a sleekly designed, autonomous vehicle he was riding in with a handful of strangers, made its way through an area of the city he preferred to ignore. In truth, the other passengers in the conveyance weren't total strangers to him, having seen at least a few of them previously in similar circumstances. After all, they each made regular use of the pod system, and therefore possessed a vague awareness of one another as frequent passengers who'd shared the vehicle, or one effectively identical to it, enough times for that to occur. Still, these weren't people Tom was genuinely familiar with or attached to in any meaningful way. Of all of them, a particularly well-dressed, somewhat older woman, who he casually thought of as the pretty lady every time he'd encountered her, was the only one who'd managed to occupy any significant portion of his conscious mind for any length of time during his commutes. Indeed, the pretty lady was present, revealed by the faint scent of her equally attractive perfume circulating through the enclosed air of the pod. Hallett supposed that she was ultimately noteworthy to him, not simply by virtue of her admittedly compelling and obvious aesthetic attributes, but because she had an almost formal, refined air about her, as if she had either spent time in or aspired to join the executive class. It of course wasn't shocking to encounter such a person mingled with everyday citizens. To be sure, there were individuals who simply enjoyed presenting themselves in a more formal and elaborate manner of dress, despite lacking an executive designation, but Tom had to admit, there was something unique about her. Perhaps it's her smile, he thought, summoning an image of her, and studying it with his eyes still closed, despite the woman literally sitting feet away from him. Conventional wisdom told him that this was a completely appropriate behavior, having been taught from a young age that it was impolite to stare, particularly when such an action was technically unnecessary. The pod's electric motor whined a bit as it began to make its way up a slight gradient, which Hallett could have used to make himself aware of its precise location if the GPS transceiver in his implant weren't already able to do so on demand. They were traveling through the city's old town, a cluster of homes that had been intentionally kept in the style of the late 20th and early 21st centuries, its residents opting to forgo many of the aesthetics and conveniences of modern life for a variety of reasons. In Tom's mind, the whole idea of the place was a bit of an affront, an objective waste of land and resources that he felt could and should be better used to serve the needs of the city's current population, rather than catering to the whims of the comparatively small group of citizens that lived within it. Still, as with many other things in life, Hallett had felt compelled to pick his battles when filling out his ballot in the most recent election, using his limited number of votes to influence outcomes that had a more direct and meaningful impact on his own life. This was no doubt precisely as the refiners had intended when the new voting system had finally been instituted after decades of brutal internal conflict that had taken the country to the brink of destruction on more than one occasion. Tom had been a young boy when all that chaos had finally come to an end, and had therefore become part of the first generation to meaningfully benefit from the outcomes and the renewed stability they brought.